Well, I returned to this pulpit fully invigorated as a new grandfather. But I didn't have much to do with it, really. But I'm glad that you believe me because I was going to offer a lot of photos for proof. But Sophie Goldsmith was born on a Friday night, September 26th. And somehow the familiar words of Sophia Foz, those words that we read here every Christmas Eve service, those words got dialed up unexpectedly in the deep recesses of my mind. You know the words, each night a child is born is a holy night. I placed Sophie lengthwise on my lap and diligently studied my granddaughter in great detail that first night. Holiness was assuredly present, and the miracle of new life entering this world, replete with fingernails, eyebrows, a perceptible dimple, could only be adored in silence and awe. She looked as though some great hand siphoned off the best genetic features from her father and mother as a gift of some promising great beauty. I saw no trace of myself. And I was relieved. She bore no resemblance to my father, believe you me. But her features, a partial mirror of how her dad looked as a newborn, served as a sweet reminder that life moves forward in an irrepressible manner. Like a river that keeps on flowing through the centuries of time, carving canyons and spawning new life. A newborn reminds us of the currents and tides and ebb and flow going always forward beyond our control. I felt the generations of the past looking over my shoulder in amazement, intrigued that life, to some extent their life, now continues on in regions of the world they would never suspect. The cactus-filled desert of Phoenix is very far removed from the old world's cultural center of Berlin. But life meanders in unpredictable patterns. Rivers hardly ever run in a straight line. So observed the poet James Dillard Freeman, who is part Native American and part Irish, who has the singular distinction of having two of his poems placed on the moon. One laid down on the lunar surface after having been carried up there by Apollo 11, and the other by Apollo 15. He is nicknamed the Poet Laureate of the Moon. So James Dillard Freeman points out that rivers hardly ever run in a straight line. Rivers are willing to take 10,000 meanders and enjoy every one and grow from every one. When they leave a meander, they're always more than when they entered it. When rivers meet an obstacle, they do not try to run it over. They merely go around, but they always get to the other side. Rivers accept things as they are, conform to the shape they find the world in. Yet nothing changes things more than rivers. Rivers move even mountains into the sea. Rivers hardly ever are in a hurry. Yet is there anything more likely to reach the point it sets out for than a river? It rained that Friday night Sophie was born. That's pretty unusual in Phoenix. but enough of it fell to inspire her parents to render unto her a new middle name from the one previously planned. Her middle name is Rain, and the gods took notice. The following day let loose with thunder, lightning, and what meteorologists refer to as a monsoon, producing the single biggest one-day accumulation of rain in the history of record-keeping in Arizona. I advise them that should they have another child, they need to be more careful in what they're going to name that child. The drenching rain caused huge inconveniences as it flooded roads and shopping centers and wreaked havoc on a population that brags excessively on its sun-filled days. But the flooded areas were teeming with unexpected new life as ducks and geese floated by on these new rivers past Home Depot and boutique shops and exquisite restaurants. Where there is water, there is life. And water in unusual places attracts wildlife of all kinds. And they seemed perfectly content paddling in these new streams, as though excited by the prospect of doing a little window shopping for the very first time. Norman Maclean keeps track of time by measuring his own proficiency in fly fishing. He writes that he has become too old to be much of a fly fisherman, but he's out there alone in the big Blackfoot River, where he notices how all existence fades into a being with his soul and memories and the sound of the river. Eventually, he writes, all things merge into one, and a river runs through it. The river was cut by the world's great flood and runs over rocks from the basement of time. On some of the rocks are timeless raindrops. Under the rocks are the words, and some of the words are theirs. I am haunted by waters. While holding a newborn, the past, present, and future flow together in connecting images of what has been and all that might yet be. Like a river flowing over rocks from the basement of time, I am intrigued by the long extent of time which has carried the elements comprising this new child of a new generation. And where the headwaters of this gene pool once originated, I haven't a clue. But I'm fascinated by the idea of its long, meandering continuation. Like a river of energy, where life and death are only different points on the same continuum. We are drawn to rivers, I believe, because so much of our body is made of water, like our tissues, blood, bones. 65% of our body weight is water. The brain and heart are composed of 73% water and our lungs 83%, and I can only imagine our kidneys. Water is life. Life that flows literally within us, and also a metaphor for the endless flow of generic life, life writ large, life over time, of which we are also a part. Water, cut by the great flood, continuing from one generation to the next and to the next and to the next. But is there not some hesitation these days, some hesitation about thinking or feeling assured that life flows forever onward? Do the tomorrows seem as endless as they once did? Night and day the river flows, wrote Edward Abbey. Brave boatmen come, they go, they die. The voyage flows on forever. We are all passengers on this little mossy ship, this delicate dory sailing around the sun that humans call the earth. But even then, Abby was well aware of the peril confronting our mossy ship, endangering the voyage to where it might well not flow on forever, at least not as it always has. Ed Abbey, decades ago, and for my taste, the best environmental writer of today, Kathleen Dean Moore, both of them, at different times, of course, went to the river for counsel. Abby said, "I choose to listen to the river for a while, thinking river thoughts before joining the night and the stars. I am struck by how rivers are not there merely for us to admire, to observe, to look at. We also need to listen to the river. Listen to those rivers as they carry nourishment for our spirit and a wisdom honed from ancient beginnings." Kathleen Dean Moore listened with great intentionality to the Toklat River as she went camping there with her husband in the Alaskan range. At midnight, the thermometer recorded 93 degrees in Alaska at midnight. 93 degrees. In the sweltering midnight heat, she decided to go listen to the Toklat River and to think about global warming. The heat was breaking all-time records. The average summer temperatures in Alaska are now 4 degrees warmer than 10 years ago. And the winter temperatures are 7 degrees warmer than a decade ago. And she writes, "The Toklat is a shallow river that braids across a good half-mile of gravel beds, dried stream courses, deep-dug channels. Sloshing with meltwater, it clatters along among islands and willow thickets, banging rocks on cobblestones, surging into confused swells. The gray currents that night looked unpredictable and chaotic, but there were patterns." A hydrologist once explained the rules of rivers. The dynamics of a river are manifestations of energy. A fast, high-energy river will carry particles, and the faster the river, the bigger the particles. But when it loses energy and slows, the river drops what it carries. So anything that slows a river can make a new landscape. And doesn't this apply personally to those of us who are maybe 50 or 60 or 70 and beyond? As we age, we remember the high energy of our lives and all that we carried. And with the loss of energy, it slows down until we drop what we carry and behold a whole new terrain. But the point of the hydrologist is that no one pattern continues indefinitely. It always gives way to another. When there are so many obstacles and islands that a channel can no longer carry all its water and sediments, it crosses what they call a stability threshold, and the current carves a different direction.